Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm here with Trevor Negus, who is the Senior Product Manager for TLM Collateral at SmartStream. SmartStream won the best solution for collateral management in the 2021 Investment Excellence Awards from Global Investor this year. So congratulations to Trevor and his team for that success. Before I invite Trevor to sort of reflect on that success and perhaps pass on some of his thanks, we'd like to talk about some of the key issues that are facing Trevor and his team, and specifically their clients. And we're thinking about the sixth round of the uncleared margin rules that take effect in September this year. So, Trevor, thinking about the uncleared margin rules, the next and final round of the uncleared margin rules towards the end of the year, what are the main challenges facing firms currently, and what should those firms be thinking about in terms of their preparations for the next round of the uncleared margin rules?
Well, I think it's different pressures depending on what kind of firm you are. So if you're a phase 6 firm coming into scope, it's different to obviously if you're a larger bank or broker that's been in and been in scope for a while, but obviously is having to take on these new phase 6 clients to process. So obviously for the phase 6 firms themselves, they have what's been talked about much in the industry. They obviously have to prepare in terms of calculating their ANA, determining how they're going to calculate initial margin, what their custodial arrangements are going to be, the documentation that needs to be put in place, whether they need a collateral system, what reporting they need to put in place. And some or all of this they may decide to outsource, or they may decide to do some or all of it internally. So I guess that's what phase 6 firms need to be thinking about. For the larger firms, for them, I suppose it's largely a question of increased volumes and costs. So they need to onboard a lot of new agreements. They need to process more variation margin calls, more initial margin calls, more settlements, and with that comes more reporting. And coupled with the increased volumes, there's also increasing costs. So they'll have more custodial overheads. They'll have to source more collateral and manage more collateral. And so that's management of collateral as well is important. So question is, how do we solve these greater volumes and these greater costs? Well, I suppose from my perspective, I think firms want to be automating as much as possible. So, to achieve automation, they need the building blocks for that, and that would be things like standardization and digitization. So, adopting standard industry initiatives like the ISDA-SIM, like the CDM, the ISDA common domain model. The ISDA standard legal agreement taxonomy. By adopting standards, then it's far easier to automate. And the other, I suppose, big building block is connectivity, which we can talk about more. But you need to connect internally with your up and downstream systems. So for reporting, for settlement, for consuming your inventory or posting out to your inventory, and also externally connecting up to industry utilities like AcadiaSoft, or to your tri-party custodians, or to Rex engines. So again, connectivity is fundamental to building automation.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I would like to ask you about the collateral challenge posed by the next round of the uncleared margin rules. But before we come on to that, Trevor, perhaps you could talk to us about, as a key solution provider to all of the firms that are in scope for the uncleared margin rules, how do you ensure that you're sort of equally relevant for the largest sort of global banks and the smallest funds and asset managers and companies like that will be caught up in the next round, in the sixth round of the uncleared margin rules? How do you ensure that you can sort of meet the requirements of the largest and the smallest?
Yeah, good question, Luke. I mean, I think from our perspective, there's a number of things to think about, but I would say, in terms of the phase 6 firms, what they're looking for, or the smaller firms, is what they're looking for is a turnkey solution. They don't want the overhead of, installing a large collateral solution and all that comes with that. What they want is, something that where a lot of the IT overhead is handled externally. So with that in mind, we have a cloud hosted offering of TLM Collateral, and obviously with that you've got considerably lower install costs. It comes with business continuity support, full production support. A lot of your hardware costs are much reduced, and you can actually pay for what you need in terms of hardware, so you don't have to buy for when you're processing the most amount of volume. You can upscale and downscale as you need it, basically, so it's much more cost effective. As well as that, you get auditing, archiving, service level agreement reporting, you get a test environment, so all of that comes with the solution, and through our cloud offering, and that obviously makes it much more turnkey for firms. So for those smaller firms coming in scope, they don't want the overhead of deploying. They want all of it done. And the beauty of our cloud solution is it's a private cloud, so you don't have any of the security concerns because you've got your own cloud instance. And also with that, it means that you don't have any performance bottlenecks, and also you can customize the solution, which is important for firms. They need to make changes to the workflow, perhaps, or to the types of reports they require, and all of that can be done via a sort of private cloud solution. So I suppose that's what we're looking at from a smaller firm's perspective. From a larger firm's perspective, perhaps they're happy with an on-premise, but again, we're seeing cloud being important also for larger firms. But I think for them, it's largely a question of connectivity, as we discussed briefly earlier. Ensuring, because your collateral system, I suppose, is part of, or is the centerpiece in many respects of your middle office ecosystem, you need to be connected up. And how do you do that? Well, through APIs. So we have a suite of public APIs, and I think it's important to understand not all APIs are the same. So the APIs that we have are not, where you have to go in through the back end. They're used they're designed for use by users. They're public, they're fully documented, they're secure, they come with authentication, they're versioned, and backwardly compatible, and that's important from a larger client's perspective, because one of the real overhead costs for larger firms is the upgrade process, going from an older version to a newer version of the collateral system, and with that comes recompiling all of your connectivity. Well, if you have APIs which are backwardly compatible, then a lot of that overhead in terms of upgrade goes away. So it's lowering your overall cost of ownership, because some of that cost is built into the upgrade process. And these APIs also obviously allow for automation, and importantly, they prepare you for new technologies like distributed ledger and microservices. So we're doing different things for the different parts of the market.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. So with regards to the sixth phase of the uncleared margin rules, obviously that will create additional pressure on firms in terms of how they manage collateral sort of internally. I mean, what specifically do you think firms should consider when preparing themselves for specifically this next phase of the margin rules?
Well, I think it's right what you say. I mean, collateral is a scarce resource. The recent ISDA margin survey shows that IM is up from 130 billion to 207 billion. VM is up from close to 900 to 1.2 million since 2017. So in the last 3 to 4 years. And as well as that, you've got margin being posted at clearing houses up significantly as well, from sort of 190 to sort of over 300 billion. So it's there's big increases there in the demand for collateral, and that's only going to be exacerbated as we get more firms coming in as part of phase 6. So managing that collateral is fundamental. So knowing whether your collateral is settled, being able to handle the substitutions process effectively, but importantly trying to reduce your collateral as much as you can, or your collateral requirements as much as you can. So perhaps you can clear more trades, or you can backload legacy trades to clearing houses, or you can rebalance across clearing houses, or you can compress your collaterals to reduce the notionals. So all of that will help reduce your collateral requirements, and also looking at pre-trade optimization, so how you can sort of potentially trade at at locations where the collateral requirements are potentially going to be lower, so looking at one clearinghouse over another, that kind of thing. So reducing that, but also optimizing the collateral portfolio that you have. I mean, both sell and buy side firms will want to do this, and it's important that they do this across their whole global inventory, so not just necessarily within the collateral department itself, but across the whole firm. So it's important therefore that you have accessibility across all of your collateral silos across the globe, across different business lines, across OTC, repo, securities lending, prime brokerage, and so forth. So having that global view and getting that global view in a real time, so not on a batch process at the end of the day, but on a genuine real-time basis, and that's only really possible through public APIs.
Okay, and specifically, given that all the pressures, the challenges that you just described, Trevor, how are you working with clients to ensure that they can reduce the cost of their collateral programs?
Yeah, I mean that's a fair point. I mean, we are working with them on a number of fronts. I mean, I think I mentioned at the very beginning of the interview, about automation. Our solution is connected up to Acadia Soft for full workflow automation, so margin calls flow out through them and responses back directly into the workflow, and the collateral bookings will come directly into the workflow. So a lot of the manual effort that was required in terms of sending calls, in terms of booking agreed amounts, booking collateral amounts, all of that potentially goes away. And also with the workflow automation, you can actually book collateral from your inventory automatically. So again, you're not having to sort of look at what collateral is available, it's done automatically. So you've got that sort of full workflow automation. So we're moving very much to an exception-based workflow. So gone are the days where you're pushing events or margin calls through a workflow. What's happening now is that they will progress automatically through, and it's only where perhaps there is maybe a collateral's being suggested from your counterpart through Acadia that's not eligible, or maybe the notional doesn't fit the rounding amount, or some other issue. Only those sort of drop out, so you're only really looking at the exceptions, which means that you can potentially take on more volume with less staff. Equally, the month-end interest process is very onerous, and we're connected to Acadia for that as well, so automation there. And again, also we're looking or we're working with them in terms of the substitutions workflow. So automating your daily processing, your daily workflows is important. The other area that we're working with clients on is around our deployment approach. So we're looking at rolling out microservices, so breaking up your collateral solution into different components. So you have a workflow component, a CSA warehouse component, instruments, inventory components. So you've got these different components. You no longer have a monolith solution, and that's useful because it means that you have these components which can be upgraded independently of one another. So if you see that new functionality in the workflow is appealing to you, you can take that without having to upgrade the whole system. So firms are able to get access to new functionality much more swiftly and much more quickly, and that's taking new functionality is going to be important as these volumes increase as part of phase 6. It also means that firms can sort of take a much more, I suppose, pick and mix approach to how they use a collateral solution. Maybe they have an optimization tool internally, but they want to use our workflow, or maybe they want to use our CSA warehouse and they've got their own workflow. So they can sort of pick and mix and use different parts of the system rather than the whole system, which again can be much more cost effective if they've invested money previously in a solution and don't want to just throw it away to take a global collateral solution. So microservices is something that we're looking at. The other area that we are working with clients on is around artificial intelligence and machine learning. So, as you know, SmartStream is a reconciliations house as well as a collateral provider, a collateral solutions provider as well. And so we're working on AI within the collateral space, and that feeds into collateral management, because there's lots of ad hoc recs that need to be done beyond the sort of portfolio recs, but lots of ad hoc recs that exist within the collateral space. And we have artificial intelligence tools that can reconcile that data very, very swiftly. So you can literally load 2 files which are not the same structure. The system will be able to read that, understand it, and match it. And as it does it more times, it gets much better at doing that. And certainly, and in the collateral space itself as well, a lot of the decisions that you make in terms of when you're deciding whether you want to send a margin call out, what decisions does a user go through? They look at what the exposure was yesterday, whether it's changed much, whether the trade counts changed versus yesterday, whether there are any data errors, all of that kind of data. They make those decisions before they send the call out. A machine can learn from watching what users do, and therefore do the same job, and obviously therefore reduce your overall requirement for staffing, basically. So there's a number of different initiatives that we're working on which will help firms as they see their volumes grow over the next few years.
Great. Okay, thanks for that, Trevor. Obviously, I'm sure there's a big team effort that has gone in behind this, and not only winning our award, but perhaps you'd like to just sort of extend some thanks to some people, given your success in winning the 2021 award.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be good to thank our team in Philadelphia, our developers out there, and our business analysts out there doing a lot of work that has enabled us to win this. Also our support teams who help our clients day to day with sort of general sort of issues, have worked very hard over the last year, and obviously it's been challenging times with people working remotely. And I suppose finally it'd be good to thank all of our clients that we work very closely with, and importantly feed into us in terms of our roadmap. So, we rely on them heavily in terms of guidance in, what's the next most important thing for you guys, and having that community to draw on in terms of, what we're developing is very important. So I'd like to thank them as well. But yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, plenty to think about going into 2022, Trevor. But for now, congratulations again on winning Best Solution for the Collateral Management for the Global Investor Investment Excellence Awards for 2021. And I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more from you and your team into next year. But for now, Trevor Negus, Senior Product Manager at TLM Collateral, thanks a lot.
Thank you.